All right, podcast number 1. My name is Nathan.
My name is Samuel.
And, well, first let's start off with prayer.
Yes.
Father God, I want to thank you for today, Lord. I want to thank you for this morning. Thank you for bringing my brother Samuel with me so we can talk about things that are truly important, not politics, but you, Lord, and how you influence this world and you influence the bureaucracy and governments in this world. So I ask for a fruitful conversation, great conversation, a good time with my boy right here, and flourishment in this podcast. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay.
All right.
So
it's been a long time in the making.
Yeah.
I think we introduce ourselves just for a little bit for all of the listeners.
So you go first, bro.
I'll start off. My name is Samuel. We both went to the same high school, and now we're off into different colleges, but we're both studying political science. And I think we're just both called into this podcast for many reasons. One, because we're passionate about what our government's doing, but also about how Jesus and how Christianity is still intertwined with not only America, but also just government in general.
Yeah, so I mean, Samuel kind of pretty much took my thunder. I was literally going to explain that, but it's all good. You kind of.
My bad.
So my name is Nathan. I'm underdressed. Samuel's overdressed. Usually, it's been like that since high school. We just graduated, but Samuel would come to school all the time in tuxedos.
That's not true.
Yeah, that is true. You would come to
That's
school in
not
tuxedos. True. Everybody would be looking at you like, why is Samuel Mom wearing a tuxedo on Friday? but we know we were in mock trial.
Yeah.
So I mean that's true. But yeah, my name is Nathan. I'm also a political science major. I go to Cal Baptist University. He goes to UC Irvine.
Yeah.
So I mean we're a long ways away, but we still kept in touch. We graduated 2023, so we're both 18 years old. Or yeah, you just turned 18.
I just turned 18.
Just turned 18. So I've been 18 for like 6 months, but we both have a passion for Christ, number one, and a passion for not politics but government. Sam, you wanted to be a lawyer, right?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So I've wanted to be a lawyer for a long time now, probably 4 or 5 years, but I feel like my motive to be a lawyer is constantly changing. Like,
Okay.
The concept stays the same, but I feel like at first it was like, oh, I want to be like helpful to the people who need me,
Okay.
you know, but I feel like now it's more intertwined with, or as I'm currently speaking, like I want to become a lawyer not only to be able to help people, but also just to be able to like advocate for our justice system, whether there's corruption or whether, like, even if there isn't corruption, but just ensuring that the justice system is actually fair and representing what God wants us to represent,
Mm-hmm.
I think is very important compared to what, like, no matter how many jury hearings or different decisions that are made in the Supreme Court, I feel like always, in God we trust, right? I feel like that's always the most important part at the end of the day.
Yeah, and man, especially when you lose that, I think that's when like evil starts to come. That's when you don't have God, when you don't have light, darkness shines,
Mm-hmm.
or not darkness shines, darkness comes. Well, for me though, I've been wanting to be since 2020, since the George Floyd incident with Black Lives Matter, the riots, the 2020 election with Joe Biden. I've been wanting to work in the government. I wouldn't say I want to work in politics because politics does get a bad rap, even though like me and Sam, we're going to talk about it later, how it shouldn't get a bad rap, but politics does get a bad rap. They say everyone says it's dirty, it's corrupt, but that's not politics. That's the people in politics, I would say. But I've been wanting to work in government and in politics since 2020. I don't want to be elected. Like I don't want to be in power. I think that's like I'm like the type of person where to shy away from the leading role. I only lead if I have to,
Mm-hmm.
but I believe I'm called by God to share my Christian values with this country that so desperately needs it.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe I could start off by making these podcasts, bro. Meeting with senators. I met with a few candidates for my state of California, because we're in the state of California.
Mm-hmm.
Met with a few candidates, local government officials, dude, trying to get my name out there. And you told me 2 weeks ago you just met with presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yeah, I was there with a lot of them, and it was a good experience. It was really eye-opening, not only just with all of the candidates who were in the debate, but also I've met with many deputy officers and just county and deputy, like their attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's so eye-opening to see like what they do every day in the background. Because I know obviously the media likes to portray like how they're doing all these good things and all of these bad things. But I feel like at the end of the day, they're still human, and like every single day, they're just trying to get through these 24 hours, you know? And so there's so much stuff going on in the background that we don't know. Like they take lunch breaks too, and like we always just view them as like constant workers, where like I think some type of compassion is also needed for them, you know?
Mm-hmm. So we have a main point, right? It's gonna be like our very first main point episode. It's how does politics and Christianity intertwine?
Yeah.
But I think we should start off with modern problems or today's problems.
Current events.
So current events. So what do you got? What did you got for this? What did you get for this week?
So my current event that I want to bring up is obviously the most recent. It's a historic thing that just happened. It's the ousting of Kevin McCarthy from the House. Obviously he's still in the House, but his role of Speaker is no longer there, and now I think it's October 11th where they're going to be having a new debate, whether it's, I mean, last time it took 15 votes, whether it takes 1 or 20 this time, you know, I feel like it's going to be definitely a change, and I think it's important to just bring it up.
Mm-hmm. So there's all that, you know, diving in deep in that type of stuff, but I think the most important thing is to look at from a, you know, external point of view, why is the Republican Party, because, I mean, I would register as maybe a Republican because I have Republican and conservative values. Samuel, could you have
pretty much the same.
So we both have pretty much the same values. Doesn't mean we're biased. I mean, we always keep an open mind. But it's funny to me how the Republican Party is pretty much imploding on itself. You have the far right Republicans, then you have the left leaning Republicans, which the far right call rhinos, and the left leaning call the far right Nazis. So it's a very sad ordeal to see the party that you agree with the most implode in itself.
Yeah, and I think it's crazy how it wasn't even a Democrat that called for the voting. It was Matt Gaetz, also another Republican. So, I mean, because this has never happened before, and mainly because whoever is the Speaker of the House, they're part of the majority party.
Mm-hmm.
And that the only way for them to be removed is for all of the opposing party, plus support from their own party, to remove them. And there were 8 Republicans who had voted out, and it was 216 to 210. And it's just, it just feels like, especially with the recent voting of the Speaker, there's just implosion of the party in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like so much division, whereas there's already division in America between Democrats, Republicans, and third parties, and now
we're splitting the party.
It's splitting itself.
Yeah, and I know we're probably didn't talk about this, but I think that's a very dangerous thing for Republicans, because we always want to take the high road. We always want to say we're better than this, and Democrats and liberals can get down and dirty. They'll find dirt on you, they'll attack you, they'll cancel you. But Republicans always want to be passive, and I'm not saying we should do what the Democrats do, but at the same time, Democrats band together. They stick together, right?
Yeah,
even
totally.
when they don't agree with each other, they stick together. They're like, it's disgusting, but I mean, hey, like that's how you win.
Yeah.
And
They have the right idea.
exactly, and then like we see with our presidential candidates like Ramaswamy, we see with Tim Scott, we see a lot of hostility, and everyone. I mean, don't quote me, like don't quote me on this, but I believe Trump's gonna be the presidential candidate.
Yeah,
Like
and I'm not sure if people have watched the debate, but
Yeah.
Haley, Ron DeSantis, and Ramaswamy, they had a huge argument, and it wasn't even, I mean, I don't want to use political, but it wasn't even relevant to the debate, and
Not at all.
it got turned into like personal attacks with whether it's their children or their values, and I just feel like at this point, like I don't want to be offensive, but we're just watching a bunch of debaters debate about who's better than each other,
Mm-hmm.
and not politically or governmentally, it's who's the better man in
Who's a
general.
better man or woman.
Yeah, and I don't feel like we want somebody who's just trying to be proposing that they're the better person.
So I would agree with you, but I believe Trump in like 2016, he kind of was like the first one to do that.
Yeah.
He attacked people, but that was because no one has ever seen someone like that, a billionaire who is independent of any PAC, Political Action Committee.
Yeah.
So I think that was different, but people are starting to act like fools. I would say, like the candidates trying to emulate what Trump did.
Yeah.
I'm not saying what Trump did was good. He would attack Marco Rubio. He would attack all the presidential candidates by calling them names. But I mean, like, it only goes so far, you know.
And also, I want to bring up, this is kind of getting off topic, but I feel like since you mentioned Trump, I think he's the only candidate that we've had, even including Biden, that is so socially active on social media.
No, yeah.
And like, obviously there are these jokes and everything, but I think it's so different to the way that citizens are consuming media nowadays. Just like the most recent first and second debate, Trump wasn't there, and instead he had an interview in Michigan, and he posted it on Twitter, and all of the news anchors, they received only about 20 to 50 million views, and Trump's video got 200 million.
That just goes because what was the interviewer's name for Fox News? He left. Tucker Carlson.
Yes.
So yeah, when Tucker Carlson interviewed Donald Trump, and the views, the view count literally like doubled or tripled.
It skyrocketed. And it was over quadruple what the news anchors had, and and it was only on Twitter. And I feel like the way that social media is being used nowadays, now obviously off topic, but I think our social media and our news media and the way we consume it is definitely changing.
Yeah, oh, definitely, dude. I think people have been so like wanting it quick, wanting it fast. Like we were just talking about before the podcast with people with like short attention spans, or they want it easy, they want it quicker. So I think that building that, like even where they're talking about in the second debates with Ramaswamy, how they're attacking him for using TikTok.
Yeah.
Remember that? And Ramaswamy is obviously the youngest one, probably the richest one too, but the youngest one, saying how we need to get to our young voters. And I've been saying this for 2 years already, ever since I've been like into this type of thing. All the Republicans were like, all of my Republican families, all the people that I surround myself with that are, you know, that are more conservative, say, oh, well, TikTok's for the devil, right? TikTok, they're gonna steal your information. Which, I mean, what app doesn't steal your information?
Everything.
You know? Everything steals
your
your
information. At this
information.
point, you know.
So
if you got one of these things.
Exactly. Like they know who you are, they know where you live, they know your social security number, like they know you.
They know you.
But if you want to get your name out there, you're gonna have to choose the necessary evil. I think that TikTok was a smart idea from Ramaswamy, especially it shows how willing he is to reach the young voters. So yeah, I know that's probably off topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, what does this have to do with McCarthy? But I mean, hey, like this is what we do. This is conversation.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, with going back to Kevin McCarthy, I think that it was a very, very sad day for Republicans. A lot of Republicans claimed it as a victory, which, you know, I don't know if it's a victory or not. I didn't care for Kevin McCarthy, but at the same time, he was a Republican.
Yeah, I don't think we should be classifying it as like a victory or a defeat. I just think at the end of the day, we should see it as it is, and that's just division in the Republican Party.
It's a problem.
It's a problem. And I mean, I don't know. I know obviously some of the candidates who are going to run for speaker, but some still haven't proclaimed it. I know there was a whole thing with Trump proclaiming or giving support to people, and I just think it's so, at this point, it feels so heavily influenced by these big names that what really is the qualification, and I feel like the speaker hasn't had, like, the role of speaker isn't known commonly by many citizens.
Yeah.
And even if they are, what their job is, what their role is, and I feel like somebody who's third in succession to the presidency is just, they should be talked about a lot more.
Yeah, well, like even the vice president, dude, like the vice president, not until recently, they didn't have no powers.
Yeah,
like we talked about this. The vice president had no power. Like he was just like the wingman, bro. Like, so even then, like people, we're kind of diverting, but dude, especially people our age and people a little bit older and younger, they don't know anything about the government, bro. And I think that it's important to at least, because if you don't like politics, that's fine, that's perfect. But at least understand what your government is about, how it's made, how amendments are created, how laws are created. At least know that. So when you vote, because voting is very important, you can actually have a say and be an asset to building this country, making it a better place.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, all this ties with Christ, though. That's gonna be our main point soon. But we have one more.
Yeah. What's your current event?
It's the Israel and Gaza conflict. So basically, Israel's basically it's being attacked in it says right here, Israel ambulance service says 100 dead Hamas. So obviously it's at war after the Hamas surprise attack. That's what, according to these journal articles, say. And many people would ask, well, how does this tie with America, right? You were just asking me that before.
Yeah.
Israel is a very new country, founded in the 1940s. And many people were against it, especially the Muslims and the Muslim countries around it, because they believe that's their land. We know the Israel and Palestine conflict. It's a very, very controversial topic today in America, which I don't think it should be. Many people want to compare Israel and our aid for Israel with the help and aid to Ukraine. Two very different things, I would say.
Totally different situations.
Very different situations,
yeah.
But people that want to cut Ukraine also say they want to cut Israel, and it's like it's very interesting and controversial. But I would say that we have been aiding Israel for the past since like the 1940s, since it was founded as a country, and even before that, like we recognize Israel as a country, but the countries around it hate the country. There's like literal hatred for that country, and I mean, if you know anything about the Bible, you know that the Jews are God's chosen people. They're probably not too fond about Christians because we're Christian, but the Jews are God's chosen people, chosen, even to the day of Abraham, right?
Yeah.
And if you go against God's chosen people, you got to get ready for you better be ready to feel God's wrath. Even if the Jews in Israel haven't been following God, it's back and forth. You look in the Old Testament, the Jews are like this. God's right here, like they go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth every time. So it's like this is just them retreating from God right now, but that doesn't mean that they're lost, So seeing this war kind of warns you, because it says in the Bible that when Israel's attacked and America doesn't help, and America backs off, that's when America loses its aid by God, I would say, because we're being protected by God right now. In the Bible, in the end times, it doesn't talk about America for a reason. So either we get destroyed or we get invaded. That's what I think. But I think that it's a very dumb idea to not help Israel in this situation. I think that them going to war is a great sign of Christ's return. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's my thing about Israel. It wasn't really about the whole like digging in. It's just Israel in total, Israel and how they're going to war.
Yeah.
So that was my weekly,
Yeah, and I feel like there's so much to unpack there, whether it's the violence that's happening or whether or not I feel like this debate or this violence between Palestine and Israel has been going on, it dates all the way back to the Bible. And so I feel like it's just constant war of whether it's spiritual warfare or literal, physical, and violent warfare. I feel like whether or not America interferes or whether or not we give out aid, I feel like at the end of the day, America does support Israel.
Yeah.
And they support Israel not only through the founding of their country, but also through aid, through money, through relief. Mm-hmm. And I feel like no matter what, there's going to be America involved. Whether it's not involved, I feel like even if we don't involve, we're involved. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like whether or not that type of an intervention, I do think that I think you're right. Without America's intervention, I feel like we aren't supporting God's people, and we are built on the foundation of God, right? Like in God we trust. It's literally on our dollar sign.
Exactly.
And it's just in order to hold still to our values, and obviously people might not agree with this, but at the end of the day, America's founded upon Christ.
And that's what brings into our main point.
Yeah.
Politics and Christianity and why they intertwine. Mm-hmm. So keep going.
Yeah, so I feel like politics and Christianity, people try and separate it, and obviously there's like implied powers of the separation of church and state.
Yeah.
But I feel like no matter what, no matter how much you try and separate church and state, it's always going to come back together.
You can't.
It's not possible. And while I think you can separate it for a short period of time or put boundaries on it, no matter what, it's always going to come back to bite you, because I feel like no matter what, God does have the power. No matter which president we have, no matter which speaker we have, or no matter which judges or justices that we do have, I feel like at the end of the day, we have checks and balances. And I think the check on our government is God,
Yeah. And many people want to say, well, wouldn't that make it a monarchy? Or not, I'm sorry, not a monarchy, a theocracy.
Yes.
No, it wouldn't, because I'm not proposing, me and Samuel aren't saying this should be a Christian country, even though it was founded on the basis of Christianity, dating all the way back to the Pilgrims with the Mayflower Compact. You can go deep into that. If you read the Mayflower Compact, you would see there's the Bible verses, they're speaking to God, they're making a covenant with God. I think that the Mayflower Compact and the Abrahamic Compact with God are the two covenants that were made for God's protection. Obviously, the Abrahamic covenant was with the Jews, and this covenant was probably with America. I would say so. So, breaking that covenant when you have, and I talked about this a lot, breaking that covenant when you have just sin in our country and you have recognized sin and celebrated sin, that's when you know that, all right, yeah, dude, we're not following what God had planned for us.
Yeah.
So that's a lot to unpack in itself. That's a whole nother subject.
Mm-hmm.
But so how does this apply with government? What would you say?
I think the way that we apply anything, whether it's spiritual or governmental or even like homework, I think when you apply things, you really got to think and dive deeper into it. And I think when you dive deeper into what we're talking about right now, the subject of Christianity and politics being intertwined, at the end of the day, every single country has a government.
Mm-hmm.
No matter if it's a democracy, theocracy, patriarchy, monarchy.
We all follow something.
We all follow something.
All humans serve something.
Yeah. And whether that's people who think that we serve ourselves, I mean, there are those people, right? And obviously, but I feel like at the end of the day, when you try and intertwine politics and Christianity, there's always something, there's always a connection there.
Yes.
And so God is continuously showing that, whether it's through the Bible and all of the things that he used to do, whether it was in the market and, he was tearing everything up and just showing that this is God's place, Like, I feel like America, I mean, obviously Israel is too, but, like, America is God's place. And, like, we are founded under God. And obviously, I do think that our amendments, especially the Bill of Rights, I mean, Amendment 1, free religion, Establishment Clause, and I feel like there's always going to be, we can't force Christianity on every citizen.
Okay.
That's just not going to happen. But I do think an awareness and a common understanding that it doesn't even have to be an understanding that God is in power, but an understanding that we are still being checked by something, a higher power. And now, obviously, for me and Nathan, that's God, right? And so when you try and intertwine all of these things, whether you're Republican or Democratic, whether no matter which the president is, I feel like historically there's always been a connection, especially between the presidents and God. Whether they're Catholic or Jewish. I don't think we've had a Jewish president.
We haven't had a Jewish president.
But I know we have Catholic, we have had Christians, and they're definitely... No, I don't want to go back and dive deep into like who did what and who did good, but at the end of the day, you always go back and realize that God has a place and God has a store and a plan for who's in power in our government,
Yeah. So, yeah, like, dude, like, even when they get sworn in, what do they put their hand on?
The Bible.
Like, how crazy is that? How crazy is that? In God we trust. Like, the Pledge of Allegiance.
One nation under God.
Even though that was actually the One Nation Under God was actually put in the 1940s to fight against atheism, because atheism was actually growing.
Yeah.
But that just goes to show you that, dude, this is a Christ-led, I would say Christ-led at least country. This is at least a Christ-led country.
Yeah.
So to take that away, to take Christ out of our country, out of our morals, would create a moralless society, because we get our morals, whether you like it or not, atheists, Christians, Jews, Buddhists, like, we get all our morals from the Bible. We get our morals, right and wrong. We get that from God. Yeah. And that would be that's a great argument for the advocation of God, for apologetics. I don't know, because you were in apologetics.
I don't want to go deep into like the philosophical arguments, but I feel like there's two different types of morals, right? One, obviously, it comes from God. It's from what we understand and know. But for the people who aren't, people who don't trust in God, where did they get their morals? I think whether it's through their own religion, which, I mean, valid and all, but I do think also a part of morals comes from evolution. Okay. And not like evolution of humanity, but I feel like, especially if you date back like 2,000-3,000 years ago, I think a lot of things, especially like murder, cannibalism, a lot of these things that we typically don't see today was accepted back then, simply because of survival instinct. And I think that as you continue to evolve, as we continue to realize, hey, agriculture's a thing, farming's a thing, we need to continue to grow up a society, we put morals and boundaries on ourselves. Now, obviously today you hear, hey, somebody stabbed somebody, they're going to prison. But back then, a survival instinct, that was okay.
So I would actually ask you, in every civilization these thousands of years,
Yeah.
you know, there hasn't been really one civilization or one group of people that lasted, that accepted murder, accepted all these things. I would say, unless they were like cavemen.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about like the civilization. Murder has been like a stigma in society, in every civilization.
Yeah, of course.
That's what they put them in jail, and that is government. I would say government is putting the criminals in jail.
Yeah.
Government is protecting their rights. Government is all these things, and the Bible actually supports government.
Yeah.
In a verse.
Of course.
Let me pull up the verse right now. I actually had it saved. It's in Romans. Let me find it right now.
But while he's finding that, I just want to kind of like back off, or not back off, but go back onto what we were talking about, and how you were saying how all of these different crimes that we see today, whether it's like cavemen, obviously, but I think the reason why it's now such a heavy thing is the literal reason of evolution, because we have realized and grown that, hey, this does not work. Therefore, we have to move on.
Yeah, dude, like.
I mean, obviously, it's like common knowledge, but I just want to acknowledge it. Like, our morals we get from God and the government. Those are intertwined.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. So Romans 13:1, the authorities that exist have been established by God.
Yeah.
Consequently, he who rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted. And those who do so will bring judgment on themselves.
Yeah.
For rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong, and that's the end of it. So basically what they mean is like, it says right here, since all spheres of authority are established by God and instituted by him, to resist proper subjection to authority is to oppose God's ordinances. So that's why government is so important. Government is not a bad thing. We need government.
Of course.
We need government because if we don't have government, we're going to have anarchy.
Yeah.
Orderless, because government's job is to bring order.
Or with what Madison was saying, without, like, if we were a perfect race, or if we were a perfect humanity, we wouldn't need government.
Yeah,
But we're not perfect.
But we're not. And I think that government is ordained by God as a means to control our sinless desires, or our sinful desires,
Yeah.
to control our sinful desires and to regulate us in a way to be assets to the world and to help this world and to punish sin and to punish all these things and to protect our rights.
Yeah.
That's the government's job. The government's job is it's not to have a say in what you do, and that's why I believe in limited government, right? We both do. But the governmental powers, especially today, have been overreached.
Yeah.
But going back to that's the core of the government, though, to protect your rights, to protect your liberties, and to punish evil. Everything else, I would say, is, well, with some exceptions, right? Regulating commerce, all that stuff in the Constitution.
Obviously.
But those are the main things that a government should do, and I think that that's what America did for a long time. It's changing now, and we see that change, dude. Like we see it drastically, and we see people getting selfish, and when people get selfish in our government, and it spreads like cancer.
Yeah.
Just one. If you sacrifice just one of your values, it's like so easy to sacrifice all of them. It's so easy. It's so easy to make that. Oh well, it's just it's just a political action committee that they're just trying to they're trying to donate me money. No, like not knowing or even knowing that they have an agenda. Everybody has an agenda.
Yeah.
Everybody has their agenda. Everybody that voted in office has their agenda, even though they say, I'm going to do what you guys are voting me in for, which is how it should be. But we're human, dude. We have our own selfish desires. So like yeah, dude, it's very sad.
Yeah. And I feel like no matter what, like how you were saying, everybody has an agenda, and it's no matter whether you're a politician, no matter whether you're involved in the government, no matter if you just live a normal life. Everybody has an agenda because we're flesh, we're human nature, and we have our own thoughts, we have our own desires. And I'm not saying that's wrong at all. You should have your own, but it's just nature. We all have our own desires and our own flesh, and whether or not that's good or bad, that's entirely up to you. But I think, especially when it comes to God, I would even argue God has an agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course God has an agenda. And I feel like, obviously, we need to go according to what His is. And I feel like, obviously, some agendas are better than others.
Yes.
And I feel like God's agenda is the most powerful of all.
That's the most important thing. God's will or God's agenda is more powerful and more life-giving than any other person's will in this world. Like myself, going into my, like I have a testimony, like, dude, I tried doing my will for a long time recently, and it's just been killing me. It's led to sadness, led to heartache, and I actually wrote like a little letter about this in my, it's actually posted on my Instagram. Instagram is Nate Noriega Samuel. Yeah. You just put
we'll have an Instagram and we'll tag each other.
And then you say your Instagram too.
Yeah.
It's Samuel.ma.
It's
Samuel.ma.
You'll find it on our thing. Yeah, don't worry.
But yeah, dude, like I wrote like a little letter called the non-Jesus generation, the carnal mind of man, and it's just explains going into my testimony and why I know this is probably diverging from government and politics, but I think it's important to see why our generation is going against God so much that it's to the point where people are against God, against the notion of God. And people get hostile when you talk about God. And people say, like, stop forcing your religion down my throat. And that's not at all what Christians do. Like, it's
for sure.
Like, even God, I would say God didn't even force his belief. Like, even though he made Adam and Eve, he didn't force it down their throat. He gave them a choice.
He did.
He said, follow me.
They made their own choice.
Or I'll give you, or there's a tree right there. And you get to choose. Because think about it. If you never put that tree there, a lot of atheists ask, well, if God didn't want them to sin, why did he put the tree there? But people, if you're small-minded, you look, like, no offense, if you're small-minded, you will look at it like that.
Yeah.
A true and just God
He
will give you a choice every single time.
It's always a choice.
And there was that tempting notion to become God. It's what the serpent told Eve. God is lying to you, which he's not. But God's saying, if you eat this fruit, you will surely die. But he's saying, that's not true. Like, you won't die. It's in Genesis. Everyone knows the story.
Yeah.
But if you eat from the tree, you'll know good and evil. Which Satan wasn't lying. Yeah.
And I would argue that we did die. We, not like physically, but
spiritually.
We killed a connection that was so close. And I feel like, now obviously I don't know how like realistic this was, but I do know that Adam and Eve had a direct conversation and connection with God. Like, they were like normal friends.
Yeah.
Obviously not friends, but like they could speak to each other and they could definitely learn. And God put so much responsibility on Adam and Eve as the first people. And obviously this is diverging again, but I feel like bringing it back to politics, we have a choice.
Yes.
In voting, we have a choice. America gave us a choice, and we can choose whether we vote for this person or this person. We don't even have two choices. We have multiple choices. And I feel like at the end of the day, whoever we do choose is according to God's will.
Yes.
And that's our own agenda, but it's also, you have to realize, our agendas are part of God's agenda. Because he knows what our agenda is.
God knows what we're
But he also does give us that choice.
Yes.
He lets us have our own agenda. Because if he wanted to, he could be, you have this, you're this, no matter what. Just follow me.
But that's not love.
Exactly.
That's not love. That's robotic love.
Exactly.
True love is a choice every single time, dude.
Yep.
If that wasn't the case, then we would just be, like I said, robots. And that's not love by no means. That's totalitarianism, and that's authoritarianism. You even look at countries like North Korea. Look at countries like, I don't know about Russia. Russia is an interesting case. North Korea, you have China, you have Nazi Germany.
Yep.
All of them, dude. It's one guy. Love him or you die.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the choice.
Yep.
And
you don't have a choice.
Yeah, there's no choice.
It's forced.
There's no choice. You can't live. You can't live to be again, like, God allows you to live on earth until you obviously die and you go to the grave, and you obviously, like, if you don't have Christ in your heart, that's your choice.
Yeah.
You go to hell. But that's not the case with these totalitarian dictators. They say, okay, if you don't worship me, I'll kill you right now.
Yeah.
There's
and not even that. It's not even if you don't worship me. It's if you worship others.
Yeah. If you
I think I would argue, especially with those totalitarian governments, they don't care as much. Do you worship me? They care. Do you worship others? I feel, and obviously they're intertwined. But I would argue, someone who doesn't worship you, but someone who's not violent, is not as big of a threat as somebody who constantly and is publicly shaming you.
So let's bring it back to all humans worship something.
Yeah.
Because we know, we obviously agree that if you're a human on this world, you follow something, whether it be money, sex, drugs, another person,
something,
God, anybody, Satan. You follow something. You follow either God or anything else. There's pretty much only two things: God or Satan. Because everything of this world is for Satan, because Satan is the prince of this world.
Yep.
But God is the king of the universe, and you can either follow the king of the universe or the prince of this world.
Yep.
So, going back to that, I would say that the totalitarian dictators would kind of emulate that right there. If you can either follow God of the universe, which is to be righteous, to be loving, or follow, like you said, if you worship anything else, like, I think that kind of goes hand in hand. I don't know if you know what I mean.
Yeah. But I also I totally agree. Just going off of what you're saying, it's also like put it into a bigger scope. You know, whether or not it's the totalitarian dictators, there's that person, and then there's Satan.
Mm-hmm.
That's two choices already.
Yeah, but I would say
and then there's also God.
They're the same. Satan and
they are the same.
Yeah,
I agree. But I feel like, as a human mind and the way that we process things, it is two choices. I feel like, because obviously we don't know it. Obviously, yes, they are the same thing. But because we're not totally understanding that, some of us don't truly understand it. Like, say I can worship technology, but in that same way, I'm also worshiping Satan.
Yeah.
You know? It's just my brain doesn't process, hey, I'm also worshiping Satan. You know? So now, obviously, this might be a subject for a different one, but I want to reel it back in. I have one more last question. And it's, obviously, we talked earlier with McCarthy, and it's how does this new social media and the way we consume news intertwine with Christianity? So
it says in Revelation that when Jesus Christ comes back, the whole world is going to know.
Yeah.
Is going to have that choice.
Yeah.
But there's, I believe, 2 billion people that haven't heard Christ.
Haven't heard. Not
God.
Non-believers. Haven't
even heard about God. So social media is going to play a big factor in that. Social media is a good thing. Social media is a very bad thing. Social media is good because you know information, you know it quick, you know it easy. It's very educational. It's very it's easy. It's convenient. It's very bad because it's easy and convenient. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
You get your information quick, but you get your information quick. You get it so quick to the point where you don't have to dive in deep. You don't have to research. You just look it up, and it's caused our younger generations to be so reliant on social media that they just. It's like going back to the short attention spans. It's so easy to just scroll on TikTok for hours on end.
Oh yeah.
It's that dopamine rush.
Yep.
And because you've taken some psychology, so you know a thing or two.
I feel like both of us have been victims of that. I feel like everybody with a phone has been a victim of just that constant dopamine, and like you feel like your day is just wasted after that. You know.
It's just, you feel like tired. You just feel like, dude, what did I just do right now? Like this is like a waste of time. But like how it ties in with the Bible, that's actually a good question. How social media ties in with the Bible.
Yeah, I feel like, as you think, it's just as Jesus was ascending, you know, as he said his last goodbyes to his disciples, his words were go.
Make disciples.
Make disciples. And I feel like social media is a huge component of go. Make disciples. Because now obviously other people can make different things. They can make different idols. But especially with the people, and obviously I know there's one pastor named Stephen Furtick. I'm not sure.
Never heard of him.
He runs Elevation Church.
Okay.
And so I feel like he's a prime example of go. And he's so active, and it's whether or not it's him just preaching, but I feel like there's so many people who are constantly getting recognition of their works. But now, while I do agree they should be getting recognition, I feel like the biggest recognition is Jesus Christ.
Always.
And God.
Yes.
And no matter what you're doing, no matter if I helped convert millions, I didn't do that. God did.
Yeah, through the power of God. I think that's humbling yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Number one. That's number one. You humble yourself to exalt the King.
Yeah.
So that was good. Bringing, like, using social media as a way to spread the word of God. That is literally the point. That's what it should be doing, because you have a bigger voice. People would, in like thousand years ago, people would have to go to different countries, and they would kill, they would die.
Still happening today.
Yeah, it still happens today, but it's just so much quicker and easier. Good.
And easier to hide because of social media.
Yes.
And I feel like so much evil is being hidden because of the way that social media can mask things.
Also, a lot of evil's being exposed, though.
Yes.
Think about it.
Both
Back
ways.
in the day, we didn't know what politicians were doing. We would just vote for them, and then scandals would come out in the newspapers.
And we just believe it.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't even alive when newspapers.
You wouldn't even bat an eye of whether or not it was true.
But yeah, like, dude, like, people would, it was like they would eat it up. But like social media now, it's like so easy to find the truth because there's just cameras in your face like 24/7.
Yeah.
You can't even blink wrong, or these people would find dirt on you. They would cancel you. Looking at like more the liberals, the Democrats, they would definitely cancel you a lot. But dude, like, it's just so easy to mess up in this. I think that's pretty good from social media. I think that's a good thing, because it exposes who you are. With some exceptions, you can still hide yourself. A lot of people do. A lot of celebrities hide themselves, but I think it exposes who you are, and that's the good thing. The truth will always set you free. I think that's the most important thing. So that's my response, even though it probably wasn't really a good one, of how social media and Christianity would work. You pretty much just helped me out. So,
all right.
But yeah, dude, it's just like, and like we talk about these things. We'll talk about this more and more, but Christianity and politics it's almost like it's poison to say that they go together. Like, dude, even at our school.
Mm-hmm. I feel like at every school there's...
Like, well, because we went to a Christian school.
Mm-hmm. A very small one at that.
Yeah, a very small one. 45 people in our class, right?
40.
Dude, 40 people in our class. So it's super small. But all our teachers were obviously all Christian.
Yeah.
And they would have this... dude, even like Mr. Seal, like even our history and Bible teachers, they would be like, oh, well, yeah, politics is just like Jesus only, like Jesus. Don't even look at politics. Yeah. Which, I mean, look, dude, Jesus first every single time.
Yeah,
but
of
dude,
course.
we live in this world. We shouldn't be of it, but we live in this world, and Christians can have a say in what goes on in this world.
Yeah, of course we do.
As we have been for thousands of years. Christians are by no means perfect, but we're the only people that recognize we're not perfect, and we need a savior to save us. Yeah. Others say that they're fine just the way they are, and that's literal poison, brain poison, dude. Saying you're fine just the way you are. That's not just in religion. That's in health. Mm-hmm. That's in the way you like if you have if you're promiscuous, having sexual, like, so much, like, a hookup culture is terrible, dude. Yeah. But people will try to accept it, say you're fine just the way you are. If you feel like it's good, go ahead and do it. Yeah. And dude,
it's just validation.
Yeah. And Christianity is the only thing that says deny yourself.
Yep.
Pick up your cross. Do what you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm. And hey, hard. That's the other choice, right? That's the choice that you do have.
Yeah. And dude, you're psychology, right? You took psych. Remember what Mr. Seals taught that one time? He says, doing what you don't want to do. And even my dad taught me this, and he's just a construction worker. Yeah. My dad taught me this. He's been saying this for years. He says, in order to succeed in this world, you got to do what you don't want to do. And literally, we saw the scientific evidence. Doing what you don't want to do, like, for example, working out in the morning, taking cold showers. I'm not saying people need to do this, but I mean it's good.
There's so many things that are helpful to you,
yes.
and like you don't want to do them.
Yeah.
But I feel like because you don't want to do them, it's actually good for you.
They make you stronger, and it's the dopamine effect. Yeah. Because when you take, for example, actually I've heard this from one of my friends who works in, he's also into politics too, but every
Yeah.
morning he takes ice baths,
Mm-hmm.
and it actually lowers your dopamine level, or I'm sorry, I believe it raises your dopamine level to the point where you just feel like you get your you get your hit of dopamine, so you don't feel that temptation to be comfortable, because being comfortable it's cheap. It's like cheap dopamine. I don't know if I'm saying this correctly. From what I heard, you probably know more about this than me. But
I think what you're trying to get at is just be comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Yes.
Because once you get comfortable with what you're doing in life, now obviously if you're like living it and like doing really good for yourself, good for you. But I feel like if you're comfortable in the uncomfortable, it really challenges you to try and continue to learn, grow, and mature in like every aspect, you know. And I feel like that kind of pushes it back to politics. And I feel like it's super. I don't think there's a single politician or like worker or anybody in that governmental aspect who's really comfortable.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's bad if they are comfortable. You know, now obviously some might say like they feel like they look comfortable. Yeah, they might look comfortable, but everything's just a show at this point.
Everything's a show.
And I feel like you can always see that I feel like the people who are the most uncomfortable are the ones that take action.
Mm-hmm.
Like the people who try and continue to push for different acts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, I mean, the biggest thing is slavery. And I feel like once people get uncomfortable, that's when they actually try and push for change.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. And, dude, like, change is good.
Of
People
course.
try to say, because we're conservative. Conservative literally means, like, you are traditional in your ways.
Yeah.
But, dude, that doesn't mean that we're against change. Change
Yeah.
is always good, because good change is a sign of a growing mind.
Mm-hmm.
Bad change is a sign of a depleting mind, I would say. So, dude, good change is always good, dude. Like, and people try to get that confused, and people try to say, well, liberals are for change and the conservatives are for staying traditional and staying in the old ways of life, staying in the times of slavery, and because people try to bring up slavery, of how the Bible supports slavery and how the Bible supports sexism, and that's just not true, dude. Like, look at the times. The Bible is perfect in any time you read it. That's why it's the same word yesterday to today and tomorrow. You look at it back then, dude, because when they try to bring that up and they talk about how God is for the murder of these sinners, and even a big one that people try to bring up is homosexuality.
Yep.
In Leviticus, and they talk about they try to say, well, in Leviticus, when it talks about homosexuality, they're actually referring to pedophilia. And you look at the times, there was a lot of pedophiles during Lot. You know the story of Lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of pedophiles, but in Sodom and Gomorrah, it was homosexuality.
Yeah.
All that stuff, dude. And people forget that there's ceremonial laws and there's moral laws in Leviticus.
Yeah. And I feel like because you're bringing up all these old stories, right? It's like the Bible has changed.
Yeah.
In and of itself, there's a literal Old Testament and New Testament, and I think, and I know, both the Old Testament and the New Testament are great words of wisdom.
But they work hand in hand.
Exactly.
They work
Whatever
hand in
you
hand.
learn in the Torah, in the first 5 books, and whatever you learn all the way up to Revelation, I feel like no matter what, they have a connection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest factor of why we believe what we believe, is because over so many centuries, or so many years, even up to now, it still works perfectly. And I feel like it always will.
It always will.
Mm-hmm.
To the end of time, dude. Like, when we go up to heaven, bro, the Bible is the same, like I said, yesterday to today, and it's going to be the same tomorrow, forever. So, yeah, how long have we been talking?
I think we'll wrap it up soon. But I think it was a good...
This was a good first thing.
It was a good first episode, just to bring and enlighten the people listening of, like, what our podcast is really about. Like, I think the first stepping stone is, why are we doing this, right?
Yeah.
And I think the reason why we're doing this is because our spiritual connection and God is so connected with our government.
Yes.
And, you know, like, whatever separation of church and state, you can aim for that. But no matter what, that combination's always going to be there. And, you know, our name, the Spiritual Statesmen.
Spiritual Statesmen.
You know,
very tough.
I think we'll try and wrap it up. But,
yeah, just the one more thing, bro. For anybody who's watching this, bro, if you don't have God in anything, something is going to fill that void. It's either going to be you, your personal desires, anything but God is not of God. It's evil.
Yep.
Anything that's not God is evil. So if we fill our government with personal desires, self gratification,
Yep.
and our own wants, it's going to destroy us. And we're good. We're the Republican Party is not going to be the only thing imploding. We are going to be imploding as a people.
Yep.
So deny yourself. I would say this message to anybody: deny yourself, pick up your cross, do what you don't want to do, and you will see how successful you are because you have a king who will never fail.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest point of why we're even doing this podcast.
Exactly.
It's so important to just raise awareness of, like, whatever, anything that's not God. Or if you're believing or committing yourself to anything that's not God, it's not of God, you know. And so I think that's where that's where we're gonna end it.
Yeah.
But we'll definitely, we'll upload this on multiple different platforms, and we'll continue to stay connected. We'll post different types of things. But our goal is every Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Every
gonna
Saturday.
record a video, post it sometime over the weekend, and anything else, Nate?
No, that's pretty much it. That wraps it up. Man, this was fun, bro.
It was fun.
Honestly,
Yeah.
this was fun. I'm thinking low key we should do the downstairs next time because I think the downstairs looks really nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we will change up our senior sometime.
Yeah.
But for now, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching.
Appreciate it.
See you guys next time.